Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Mid-Level Media channel, your hub for everything physical media and entertainment. I am Ken. Today, guys, we are here to talk about some of my recent Kino Lorber watches. So, look, guys, I have got a big backlog of Kino Lorber titles that I need to watch. So I might create like some kind of series on the channel. Like this might honestly be the start of it. I haven't decided. I don't even know what I'm going to call it yet. Where I'm just trying to go through all my Kino Lorbers and watch them. I watched 5 4Ks and I watched 1 Blu-ray, so we're going to talk about 6 titles here today. But yeah, every Kino Lorber sale, guys, like as I'm filming this is the last day of the Winter Wonderland sale. I just dive straight in and I get like as much as I possibly can. It feels like sometimes I'll only get a few releases, but this recent sale, I got like, I think almost 20 titles in the sale. And then a lot of them, guys, look, I'm not even going to lie. They go on the shelf and they go unwatched for a long period of time. So I'm going to try to start working through my Kino Lorbers because what I realized like watching these movies, Kino Lorber actually does really good movies that are really entertaining and fun. And I don't know, there's just something about like this selection of films that I watched recently that just made me realize like there's just some good stuff coming from Kino Lorber. It's like I'll watch Vinegar Syndrome and some of those are like hit or miss. Like I'll generally like enjoy like most of the stuff I watch from them. Scream Factory does a lot of the classic horror stuff and most of that hits. Arrow Video does good stuff as well. But it just feels like when I dive into a batch of Kino Lorbers, I'm like, these are just good movies that I just enjoy. So I need to dive into more of my Kino Lorber stuff. But before we get into this, guys, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. This is just going to be a very casual video. I've got prices up. All these are on Amazon. And they're actually, I think most of them are $19.99. Like most of the 4Ks are $19.99. So I'm not exactly sure like what's going on. I don't think there's a Barnes & Noble sale they have to price match, but a lot of these are $19.99. But I'll go through the prices when I talk about them. None of these were available in the Winter Wonderland sale because I got all of these in the fall sale. I haven't dove into my Winter Wonderland sale stuff just yet. But so yeah, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Turn on bell notifications for all future videos. Comment down below if you have any comments on the movies that I'm going to discuss. And let's talk about my most recent watch, and that is Blown Away. So I actually watched this last night, and this is a movie starring Jeff Bridges and Tommy Lee Jones, a film from 1994. I feel like I had heard of this movie growing up, but I never saw this movie. And I am a big fan of like 90s action films. Like I grew up on that stuff like Con Air and Face Off and Broken Arrow. Just all those movies are just such a huge Demolition Man. Like I just talked about that on the channel. Speed, one of the greatest action movies ever made, actually came out the same year as Blown Away. Like these are bad boys. These are the movies from my childhood that I loved. But I didn't check out like some of these lower tier, I guess, action films. Maybe Blown Away did great when it came out in the theaters, at the video store, like everybody knows about it. But I don't know, for whatever reason, I never watched this movie. Anyway, I would love like Broken Arrow to get this treatment though, by the way. Like we need Broken Arrow on 4K. But Blown Away with Jeff Bridges, Tommy Lee Jones. This one came with quite a bit of hype. And I'm going to be honest, I liked it. I thought it was a good movie. You also got Forrest Whitaker in this film as well. It's a little long. It's like 2 hours. And I mean, action movies in the 90s were generally 2 hours long, something like that. Some of them were longer than that. Some of the Michael Bay movies, I feel like The Rock's longer than 2 hours. But I don't feel like there was enough story here to warrant the 2 hour runtime. You basically have Jeff Bridges, who's like a bomb squad expert working for the bomb squad. You got Tommy Lee Jones, who basically like trained Jeff Bridges when he was younger in Ireland. And he gets in trouble because of a job that went wrong, and he goes to prison for 20 years. He basically blames Jeff Bridges' character for everything. Sorry, I don't know the names to everybody in the movie. And then plots his revenge when he breaks out of prison and then goes and finds Jeff Bridges, and then basically kind of torments him and blows up things around him and makes him basically like playing games with him with explosives and things like that. So it's a pretty thrilling action film. I would say it's an action, thriller. There are some action set pieces for sure, but this is really just kind of like a cat and mouse game kind of thing. There's not a lot of like real action-y like fight sequences and things like that. Just a lot of explosions and things that are just kind of tied to the theme of the film with them being bomb experts and things like that. I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was a well-directed film as well. The person that directed this actually directed Predator 2 and Judgment Night, which I've heard so much about Judgment Nights, like over the past few years, just from people I work with and also people recommending it on the channel. Like, I need to watch that one. But Predator 2, Judgment Night, Stephen Hopkins. I don't know, like, I liked the movie. Okay. I don't think it was my favorite to watch out of all the Kino Lorber 4Ks that I watched. There was just something about Tommy Lee Jones. Like, Tommy Lee Jones, in 1994, he also did Natural Born Killers. And this was the year before he did Batman Forever. There was just something about like his performances at this time. They were just very like over the top and cartoonish. And he has this Irish accent in this movie that kind of makes him sound like a leprechaun and a little bit ridiculous. So I could never, like, as much as I wanted to, because I really do like Tommy Lee Jones a lot. Like, he's really great in a lot of stuff. But he's just a little too ridiculous with that Irish accent in this movie for me to like take him seriously as a villain. And he's just like so over the top and just cartoonish with his performance. And also, like, Forrest Whitaker is such an idiot in this movie. Like, he just gets on my nerves. Like, I really don't like Forrest Whitaker in this movie. And he's another actor that's great in a lot of stuff. But he's not good. And this is a very early Forrest Whitaker, 1994. He's very young. In the film. Jeff Bridges is good. I like Jeff Bridges in the movie. I thought he did put on a really good performance for sure. But yeah, Blown Away, just kind of, I don't want to say like mid-tier. It's maybe a little bit better than mid-tier. I thought there was some really like nice action set piece moments. The 4K looked incredible. Like, if you love this movie, like, you know, definitely get the 4K because the 4K is spectacular. It's got Dolby Vision, HDR. Now, I will say there is a Blu-ray version of this as well from Kino Lorber that is a 4K scan that probably also looks great, but it's not going to have that Dolby Vision, that HDR that just enhance those colors and those visuals. And there's a lot of fire and explosions in this, and that just always looks great in 4K. And this was, I think Kino Lorber put this out on Blu-ray like years ago. I was looking, and that is out of print. It was going for like $50. So they basically put this back in print on Blu-ray and also 4K. So definitely cool. But Blown Away, it wasn't my favorites of the ones we're going to talk about, but I did enjoy this one. There's a couple of audio commentaries here. There's a making of, which is basically like an archival making of from the DVD era, it looked like. And then Take Me Home music video. Blown Away, it was good. I enjoyed it. If you love it, it looks great on 4K. Now this one was kind of a sleeper for me. I kind of just bought it because I don't know, Gene Hackman's in it. And I just buy a lot of the Kino Lorber 4Ks. I'm kind of a collector of the Kino Lorber 4Ks. So I just went ahead and threw this one in the cart as well. Narrow Margin. Let me just go ahead and bring it out, guys. Narrow Margin. I really like this movie a lot. It's not my favorite of the ones we're going to talk about. I think it's my second favorite of the ones that we're going to talk about. Narrow Margin was actually pretty damn good. Like, I enjoyed this quite a bit. You got two Walshes in this film. You got JT. Is it JT Walsh? Well, I'm seeing pop up in a lot of stuff recently, like Breakdown with Kurt Russell, and I also watched Miracle on 34th Street from 1994 with my wife last night, and he's in that as well. He's a really good actor. It's a shame he passed away so young. I was looking, he passed away in 1998, but he's in this movie for a small part, but he's great in the small part. But you also got Emmett Walsh in the film as well, which is always pretty fun. He's a good time. But Gene Hackman is great. Basically, you have Anne Archer, who I don't know how many Anne Archer movies I've seen in my life, but she basically witnesses a murder, and it's this mob boss that's involved in the murder, and she basically goes into hiding because she's afraid of what might happen to her because she witnessed this murder. Now, nobody knows that she saw them. But she goes into hiding, and Gene Hackman, through some investigating work, realizes that there was somebody in the room at the time of this murder. So he's trying to go find Anne Archer to testify to put this big mob boss guy away in prison. So he goes and finds her, and then the bad guys find them as well, and they have to go on the run, and it eventually gets them to this train, and they have to get on a train with the people that are trying to capture her and kill her. So it's a very good thriller with them just kind of trying to dodge each other on this train and get away from each other where there's really not anywhere to get away to. And it's a really thrilling movie. You got Gene Hackman in this film, 60 years old when this movie came out back in 1990. He is hanging off of a damn train by the time you get to the end of this film. Action sequence outside. It's like Mission Impossible on top of the train. He's doing all this stuff. I don't know how much like Gene Hackman actually did as far as like the stunt work, but it's really cool seeing like 60-year-old Gene Hackman like hanging off the side of a train in this movie. So yeah, I enjoyed this one quite a bit. Like I thought this was really damn good. And the 4K was also extraordinary. This is another thing I realized, like watching all these Kino Lorber 4Ks. I'm like, you know what? Kino Lorber gets crap sometimes. I know with Silence of the Lambs and a couple of their other releases. I'm like, but they really do a damn good job with some of these 4Ks. Like some of these 4Ks are really kind of outstanding. And you got the Dolby Vision, the HDR, but like the stuff outside on the train, like all that stuff just looks so magnificent. So yeah, I can't say enough good things about Narrow Margin. Actually, like really liked this movie a lot, and I was thinking this one wasn't going to be as good as some of the other ones that I watched. Like I wasn't holding this one up as high as I was like Blown Away or another one I'm going to talk about here pretty soon. But Narrow Margin's actually kind of a banger. It's a good one. You got a couple of audio commentaries here. You got a making of featurettes. I think that one of the audio commentaries is a new one, and then you got selected sound bites and B-rolls. So good amount of special features here, but yeah, I liked Narrow Margin quite a bit. Let's get into the next one, talk about Bad Lieutenants. And the only thing I ever heard about this movie was that Harvey Keitel hangs dong for like a minute. And that's what happens. That happens in like the first 10 minutes of this movie. Harvey Keitel's just kind of like, it's just really like weird sequence where he's in the room with a couple of ladies and he's just like freaking vibing out on drugs and everything. And it's just his stuff is hanging out and he's just full frontal for like a minute. And how brave, what bravery from Harvey Keitel back in, what year was this? 1992 to do that scene. And this is a movie directed by Abel Ferrara, which I actually just watched another Abel Ferrara movie. Was it The Addiction with Lily Taylor, that vampire film that just came out from Arrow Video, which was also just kind of a weird movie. Abel Ferrara just kind of has a vibe to him. I need to check out more of his films because I got that one from Vinegar Syndrome, the cinematography line, Dangerous Games or something with Madonna and also Harvey Keitel. But he definitely has a very like distinct like style with his filmmaking, just how he kind of lingers on certain things and scenes and just allows them to play out and allows you as the viewer to be like super uncomfortable when you're watching it. But basically this movie is about Harvey Keitel, and he's a bad lieutenant. Like he's a bad dude. He's doing drugs on the job. He's masturbating in front of young women in their car. Like he's doing some gnarly things out there in these streets, guys. He's not a good lieutenant. He's gambling. This movie also like gave me Uncut Gems vibes. Just like this guy that like is gambling and keeps making these bets and keeps getting in like way over his head. And you're just like, what are you doing? Stop. Like, stop this. You're not, what are you doing, Harvey? You're a bad lieutenant. Quit doing this stuff. Be a good lieutenant for once. Anyway, this is about a nun who gets sexually assaulted by a couple of young boys, and Harvey Keitel's trying to track them down. That's kind of like the overarching story, I guess, but it really doesn't like dive into that as much. It's really just Harvey Keitel going around doing like really shitty bad things the whole movie. But it's a good movie. Like I enjoyed it, and I think Harvey Keitel is just like, he's fearless in this movie, in this performance. Like he really goes for it, for sure. So yeah, I enjoy this one quite a bit. I know there's a sequel with Nicolas Cage that I've also heard insane things about, so I need to check that out at some point. But Bad Lieutenant was a good one. I think there's a new audio commentary here, but there's also a couple of new special features with this one, like brand new, that Kino Lorber did. There's It All Happens Here, which is an interview with Abel Ferrara on the making of Bad Lieutenant, which is kind of like a little mini documentary. That's a really good one. You also got Bad Neighborhoods, the locations of Bad Lieutenants featurette. Ken and Abel interview with cinematographer Ken Kelsch. So yeah, there's some really good, special features here, some new special features that Kino Lorber included with this release. And for some reason, I haven't been going through like the alternative artwork or anything. I feel like one of these 4Ks had alternate artwork. I can't quite remember, but Bad Lieutenants, it's a good one. Let's get into the Blu-ray release I watched. I watched Frogs, and Frogs is actually going for $15.99 currently on Amazon. And but I think in the sale this will go down to like $11.99 or something like that. But Frogs is a movie that I think Scream Factory put out back in the day, and I think it was in a double pack as well with one of the other releases they just came out with. It might have been Food of the Gods that it was in a double pack with. So Scream Factory did this in a double pack, and I think those were both on the same disc as well. So that went out of print, and this is the first time this is coming back in print with Kino Lorber. So Kino Lorber's kind of saving this movie, putting it back in print. And yeah, I liked Frogs. This was an interesting one. Didn't go quite as crazy as I was hoping for. It's kind of promoted as The Birds, but with frogs. Really what it is it's frogs, but it's also like all the reptiles are just like going crazy and attacking like this house and this family. So it's like all of nature that's like attacking them. It's not just the frogs. But there's some pretty gnarly sequences in this involving frogs and some of the insects and snakes. And look, you gotta respect, because like you could tell this was a low budget movie. They were doing the best they could. They didn't have like, CGI and things like that to do these animal attack sequences. Like they had to stage these things. They had to shoot these like animals in certain scenes and sequences in certain ways to make it look like they were attacking people. So there are some scenes that just kind of feel a little off because it's just like, that's not really happening the way that they're showing that it's happening. But I don't know. It was a fun movie for what it was. And you got a very early Sam Elliott performance. I don't think I've seen Sam Elliott in a movie where he wasn't 65. Even in Roadhouse, he looks like he's about 65 years old. So Sam Elliott, like a very young Sam Elliott, because this was 1972, I think. Was pretty cool. So yeah, I enjoyed Frogs. I mean, there's some good like death sequences and people die. A lot of people die in this movie, in this family. We have a new audio commentary here, and then you've got an interview. You got a new audio commentary with the son of Dan Marino. That's what this has. Like the son of Dan Marino did an audio commentary with this. And then you got an interview with the actress Joan Von Arc, which I think was from the Scream Factory release back in the day. So I think the only thing new here is the audio commentary. All right, let's get into the next one. This is a comedy. This was one of my favorite comedies when I was a kid. Like I love this movie. In and Out. In and Out came out on 4K from Kino Lorber. This is why I love Kino Lorber. Because they're doing these like classic 90s comedies, 80s comedies. They got Uncle Buck coming out. They got Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison coming out. Coneheads is freaking coming out. Like if they want to be, look, guys, I know It's Pat. A lot of people are not huge fans of it. It's Pat, and they kind of make fun of Kino Lorber because they did It's Pat. I want It's Pat on 4K. I don't think it's going to happen, but I want it. But In and Out, guys, this is a movie from 1997, and this is basically Kevin Kline. He's a school teacher. You got Matt Dillon, who just directed a movie, and Matt Dillon's Kevin Kline's like former student, and he wins an Oscar for his movie, and in his Oscar speech, he basically outs Kevin Kline as being gay, which Kevin Kline's engaged to Joan Cusack, so to everybody in this town, everybody in his school, he's a straight guy, but Matt Dillon outs him as being gay. And then the movie kind of goes from there. It becomes a big story. The news team comes in. Tom Selleck is also in this movie. And it's a hilarious film because it goes down that path of like, your inner self and like discovering your inner self and maybe becoming the person that you didn't know that you were. And there's just all those kind of themes in the film. If I'm being honest, like, I don't know if this is the kind of movie, like, I can see people like watching this now and being offended by some things, but also like that is how it is. Like in some like small towns, like that's still how people like react to this kind of stuff. Like if a dad that lived in the country found out his son was gay, like he would react like Wilford Brimley does in this movie. So I don't know if this is something that people would take offense to now in 2024, or if this is a movie that would be celebrated amongst the gay community, because this was kind of an early, like almost like gay comedy that came out, and I feel like this movie was pretty accessible and pretty like well liked by everybody. I feel like if it came out today, though, people would say it was woke and all this other stuff. But I think In and Out is great. I think it's a great comedy. Joan Cusack is fantastic in this film. Like, she's super over the top, but she's great as well. But yeah, Kevin Kline is fantastic in the role. Tom Selleck. It just has a great cast in it. As well. Like, who plays his mom? I feel like Sissy Spacek plays his mom. So yeah, he's got Wilford Brimley as his dad, and Sissy Spacek is his mom, and you got Bob Newhart in this film as the principal of the school. So the cast is great. It's directed by Frank Oz, and it just has that like classic like 90s comedy feel, almost like family 90s comedy feel that I just enjoy. It just feels like a warm hug when I watch it, you know. But I love In and Out. I think it's a great comedy from the 90s. And the 4K was freaking stellar. Oh my God, this 4K was fantastic. I never had this on Blu-ray. I think it does have a Blu-ray. I think Universal or Paramount, I think, yeah, did this one. I think Paramount put out a Blu-ray back in the day. Actually, let me look real quick so I make sure I'm 100% accurate here. Yeah, there was a Blu-ray that came out back in the day, but you know, Kino Lorber put this one out on 4K. There's also a Blu-ray with a 4K scan that probably looks great as well. But the HDR and the Dolby Vision really does a lot for this movie. There's a lot of this movie that takes place outside, like in the schoolyard and the you know, just the green grass and the trees. There's a scene by the lake, and there's just a lot of stuff that looks great in this movie. The town's beautiful in 4K, and yeah, I recommend In and Out. I think it's a good like 90s like time capsule movie. But let's get into my last watch, guys, and this was my favorite out of all the Kino Lorber 4Ks and Blu-rays that I watched recently, and that is Turbulence on 4K. Now, there's a lot of discussion about Die Hard being a Christmas movie, and I've always been very firmly against calling Die Hard a Christmas movie. Even though, look, I haven't watched Die Hard in 15 years. I am going to watch it again soon. I may do a video on the channel. I'm going to watch it again soon, and I'm going to decide definitively if it's a Christmas movie. I just don't remember it as a Christmas movie. Like, I've seen it a lot when I was a kid, but I haven't seen it a ton recently. So I need to rewatch it through the context of it being a Christmas film. That being said, Turbulence is 100% a Christmas movie to me. It takes place on Christmas Eve. The entire plane is just decorated, like all the Christmas decorations, Christmas lights everywhere. It's a Wonderful Life is playing on the screen in the background in a lot of scenes in this movie. There's Christmas trees, there's Christmas decorations everywhere. People are wearing Santa hats, Santa costumes, and all kinds of like holiday, like festive gear. So it really feels like Christmassy when you watch this movie. So Turbulence, I think, is 100% a Christmas movie. But this movie is interesting because it was set up for me to be, for me to think it was like an action movie. And it is kind of an action movie. Now, you have the actress from Dumb and Dumber, which I have not seen, Lauren Holly. I haven't seen her in a ton of stuff. She is essentially the action hero or action heroine in this film. Like, she is the hero. Like, she's like Harrison Ford. She's like Arnold Schwarzenegger. She's like, you know, Bruce Willis. She's the action hero of this film, essentially. But you have Ray Liotta, who is a serial killer, and you have Brendan Gleeson, who boards this plane as well, who was also this like psychotic, like robber, burglar guy. And they're both on the plane. It's almost like Con Air, because they bring these like two, you know, very dangerous criminals on this plane to be transported on Christmas Eve. And I think they do it intentionally because the plane's going to be there's not going to be as many people on the plane on Christmas Eve. So they bring them on there, but they're still on there with other civilians and stuff. So it doesn't seem like a great idea to do that. And then stuff goes wrong. They basically get free. People die. And then for the entire movie, you have Ray Liotta, the serial killer, who specifically targets like women, kind of stalking Lauren Holly around this plane. And she has to figure out how to keep the plane in air, also end up landing the plane during this like big storm that's also going on. So you have Ray Liotta, a psychotic serial killer, stalking a girl on a plane through this like really intense storm in the clouds. And this is just a really cool movie. I struggle to call it an action film because I would say it's a thriller, borderline horror film. Like certain scenes and sequences in this film, like Ray Liotta, who is actually like the star of the movie, which is kind of interesting because Ray Liotta is the star, but he's the villain. And then you have Lauren Holly, who's kind of playing the hero of the movie. So it is different than a lot of like the straight like action films you would see around this time that had that like definitive male hero in the role, because I feel like you would insert like a Bruce Willis or Harrison Ford, and he would be, you know, up against Ray Liotta. Probably wouldn't be realistic because they would just kick Ray Liotta's ass. But psychotic Ray Liotta versus Lauren Holly, like that's where it gets intense. That's where it gets suspenseful. That's where the tension gets ramped up. So I thought the movie was incredible. I actually like really loved it. I think it's going to become like a Christmas staple for me going forward. But yeah, Turbulence was awesome. And it is kind of an action film because the last like 30 minutes she's trying to land the plane. The plane like goes into some buildings and things like that. So there are like some explosions and things that happen, but like the majority of the film is like a serial killer like stalking a girl on a plane. Like it kind of feels like a really intense like horror thriller throughout a large portion of this movie. So I cannot recommend Turbulence enough. The 4K looked great. Now there's also a Blu-ray with the 4K scan that probably looks good as well. Now this is a cool one because this had never been put out on Blu-ray before. Kino Lorber actually upgraded this from DVD. So this is a first time to 4K and Blu-ray for Turbulence from Kino Lorber. But yeah, I absolutely love Turbulence. So I was very excited to talk about that one in the video today. But that's my Kino Lorber watches, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want more of this type of stuff, let me know in the comment section below. Subscribe, turn on bell notifications for future videos. Follow me on all my social media accounts. Those links are down below in the description, and we'll see you next time.